Hi guys, this is Mike from McProgramming.org. Today I'm going to show you how to read a text file with the scanner object. I already went over what the scanner object can do in the sense of taking in an input stream, and in the case that we went over, we were using it for user input, and it took in what was typed into the keyboard. In this case, we are going to put in its parameters a file, and it will parse through the file, and we'll be able to break it up and print it out and do whatever we want with the file. So let's get started. First, we need to set up some type. Let me show you the file I set up already. It's called test.txt, and I put it on my desktop. It just has some numbers and some names. Let me get the path real quick to that. So we will need this path. So just go to Properties, highlight it, and Control C is copy. Alright, let's go back to Eclipse. So let's set up a string variable, and we're just going to say file name. And in here we're going to paste that file, and we're also going to, and remember what I said earlier, these are escape sequences, and these are it's turning up red because I've given it some invalid escape sequences, which is \u. That's not a valid escape sequence, and to do that we could put two backslashes, but just to make life prettier, let's put /. That way we won't have this error. And then don't forget the name of the file you're reading. What was it? Test.txt. Okay. Alright, it went away. So now what we're going to do is we're going to instantiate a file. And we're going to let's just call this lowercase f file. And this is the object, file. This is the name, the reference name to it. And we're going to say new file, and in its arguments it takes in a string value, and the string value we're going to pass into it is file name. Alright, and we're going to have to import files. So you can either highlight over it and go input file, or you can say Control-Shift-O, which is organize imports, and click it there. Alright, now let's set up our scanner. So scanner, and I'm just going to call it input to reference this scanner, and we're going to say new scanner, and instead of taking in the input stream, it's going to take in a file. And you can look on the Java API online to see exactly what type of thing scanner can take in, what type of methods it has, but I know that it takes in a file, so all I'm going to do is pass in reference to this. And so we have to import scanner. Get that out of the way. We should have to, okay, we got an exception here. I could surround this with a try catch, which I usually would do, but just to make this code pretty and not have a bunch of stuff on here to confuse you, I'm just going to throw this to the method, which is the main method. So up here it will say throws file not found exception. And what that means is when it runs this code, if that file is not found, I'll show you right now. Let's see. Test2. I don't have test2.txt on my file, so when it tries to scan that and run through this file, it's not going to find it, and I'm just going to shut the program down, and you will get this error down here. So let's get rid of that. And now, how do I loop through this and read the file? Well, what we can do is a while loop, and we're going to say while input dot has next. You can say has next or has next line, and these are all Boolean types. So what that means, I'm going to just say has next line, has next line, open close parentheses. And what this means is while it's scanning this file, if it has another line, it's going to do what's inside of here. So let's say write this to a string first. So let's just say string input line equals input dot let's say next line, and if you can tell right here, it will return a string. Okay, so let's print that out and see if it is indeed reading what we want it to read. Input line. And another big thing is we never close this. See, it says resource leak input is never closed. It's always a good idea to close anything like that. Any file, anything that you open up, try to close it. It's a good habit. So there we go. Now there's no more yellow warning. So let's see what happens when we do this. There, we have that exact file name. That's pretty cool. So now, how can we take a file name and manipulate the data inside of it to do stuff? I created a little class over here called player, and it takes in a string name right here, the name of the player, and a jersey number. And as you can tell, the file I wrote has a number with a name next to it. So I have a class right here, and what we're going to do is create new objects from each line in here and display it that way. So but first I'm going to create an array list. We haven't gone over this yet, but as you remember, and we have been going over arrays, and arrays are static, as in they do not change size. Once you make that size, that's what it is. An array list is a dynamic array, and that means that it changes size with the input. Every time something's added, it can increase the size. So and to instantiate an array list, I'll show you, here's the syntax right now, but a future video will go more in depth. Do array list, and then in these, I don't know what they're called, less than, greater than things, we're going to put in the object that we want. And we're going to create player objects. And, actually, let me get back to that. Let me get back to that so we can do things in order. This will make more sense. So, let's say, come on. Here we go. Here we don't go. Alright, erase all that. Okay, so while input has a next line, we're going to separate that and read each what's called a token. And as you can tell, the first thing, and it will read a token all the way until it hits white space, which is pretty much a space right there. So the first thing is an integer. So, and as you can tell in player, when we pass into the constructor, it takes in an integer of a number and a string of a name. So let's say int number equals input dot next int. Okay, and then string name equals input dot next, and next is already of the string type. So what that's going to do is it's going to say while input has next line. So let's just look down here. It's going to say here's the next line in the file. It's going to say input.nextInt and assign that number and assign this as the next thing to name. And then what we can do is we can instantiate a player object and say new capital P player, and what went first? I think it was name. So let's pass in a name and a number. Okay, so each line we're creating a new player object. But I want to be able to print this out. So the way I like to do it is I'm going to call an array list of, and you put in the object of what goes in here. Arrays from earlier that we had went over, the static arrays, were primitive types and strings, where here we can start messing with objects. And this is an array list of player objects. You can also use integers and strings and all that in here too, but I like to use array list especially when you're using objects. So let's say player, and then what do we want to call this? We'll just say lowercase p players equals new array list, and we have to put in players again in those angled brackets, whatever they're called, a player, and then we're going to have open and close parentheses. Okay, now we have to import array list, and we can add to this array list by saying players.add, and in the parentheses give it pass in a value. So what I want to do here is pass in this object right here. So we're going to say players.add. Let's get rid of that and put it around here. So now every time we created a player, which each one of these lines should be its own new player object, we're adding it to this array list. And now that we have that, we can do a for each loop, or the enhanced for loop. This is where it really comes in handy. So let's say for, and of what type? The player object. And we're going to just call that P, and we're going to say players. Okay, now we're going to sys out P. And what this does is it's going to go through all the different types of players or player objects that are in this array list of players. It's going to print out each one. And that looks a little different from the last one. So right here I had created a toString that said that when the name is passed in, it concatenated it with where's number and then the jersey number. So there you go. There's a million different things you can do. Let me see how much time I'm at. It doesn't say, but anyways, that's a great way to start really messing with Scanner. That's the way I always read files. There's also that's a newer way that people have been reading files on Java. Older ways were buffered readers and input stream readers. I might get into that. I might make a whole Java I/O video collection, because I find that fascinating, how you can just look through things very closely. All these files, go through it, manipulate it, and maybe this is an absolute path right here. So let's say that I didn't want to have to put the whole path of the file. We can put this test.txt within this root directory of where the application is. So let's do that real quick. I'll show you how to drag and drop. Alright, so open test. Actually, we don't have to open it. Let's just put this in, and make sure you put it at the top project folder. And just say copy. Okay, and this should be in the root directory, so it should be in a line with this. Don't have it, further down. So now what we can do is just get rid of all this, and it should still work. So let's save everything and run it. And so everything works. So I kind of went off in quite a few different directions of new things: an array list, a file object, a scanner that scans files, and showed you where a for each loop can come in handy. So please join me in the next video. I don't know what it's going to be. Could be anything, but I really want to start cracking these videos out. Please subscribe to my channel. My website right now is under construction, which is McProgramming.org, but please subscribe and watch more videos, and I will keep on coming. Thank you all very much. Have a good one.